Hi, everybody. I'm Ava. I'm here at Lodgic Everyday Community. I'm the sales manager here. I'm here with Jenie Gao, who is our visitor here at our Lodgic Everyday Leaders Talk. We are both vaccinated, so we're going to go ahead and remove our masks right now so you guys can better hear us. But we are so excited to be here with you guys, and we're so happy to have everybody here in person and also tuning in. We're going to be talking about how to invest and cultivate in a diverse art community here. And Jenie is absolutely an expert on this. She is a full-time artist, entrepreneur, and creative director. She's been advocating for equity for artists and fair pay for their labor for quite a while now. She has had her work exhibited, collected, and published in the US, UK, Argentina, Denmark, and more. TEDx Madison speaker, among many others. She's had solo shows in quite a few museums and galleries. So we're so excited to have you today, and we're so excited to have you be an expert on this topic that we're talking about. And we think it's very important, and we're excited to hear what you have to say about it. So if you want to just give us kind of an overview of how you got to where you are and why you're so passionate about what we're talking about today.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, first, thank you for everyone who's here with us today, and it's my pleasure to be here. So as a little bit of my background, so I've been running my business full time now for the last 7 years, and in that time I've expanded to a 1,700 square foot commercial studio space. I have an apprenticeship program where I've had 24 interns and apprentices come through that I've hired and mentored over the last number of years. My background prior to starting my business, I worked at a cross section of different industries that really formed the foundation of the work that I do. So I worked in the museum industry, I worked as an educator in the Milwaukee public school system, and in my last role as a project manager doing lean methodologies in the manufacturing industry. And essentially the pattern that I saw over and over in these different environments was whoever has access to creative autonomy also has access to decision making, and really dictating what's important in our culture.
Right.
And so that was the groundwork for why I decided to start my business as an artist, and specifically one who aligns work with the social impact that it will have. And I also consult for cultural organizations in the public sector and best practices centered on equity for this reason. So how do we one, like, build something successful in the arts, and two, use this as a way to create new systems rather than replicating the ones that exist right now that are currently the only means for success.
Right. And there are some improvements to be made in the systems that are currently here. And that's kind of what your work is around. Just recognizing that there are changes that need to be made and have to be made in order for artists to be successful in our community. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you run an anti-gentrification business. Is that right? For the uninitiated, would you mind just kind of going over what that means?
Yeah, so as far as like framing my business as an anti-gentrification business, there are three things that I'm always looking to achieve. So one, is it possible with this project to prioritize fair pay for labor and intellect? Two, what is the long-term impact that this project is going to have on the surrounding community that's going to have to live with this work?
Right.
And three, is it possible to remove systemic barriers in the process of doing the work? And so this will be in the negotiation process for the contracts, what I require in terms of payment upfront, and what I can do to make it easier for the next person who comes up behind me to work with this same organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're talking about the impact that a piece of artwork can have on the community, what does that mean? And like, what are some of the impacts that you could see as both, what's positive and could be a potentially negative side effect in artwork?
Sure. So one good example would be like things like murals, public artworks, things that are going to live in the community for a really long time.
Right.
And just understanding the context that it's going in. If it's going to be public facing, who's going to be interacting with it? And should they be given input on something that's going to possibly drastically change the landscape of their lived environment?
Right.
Another example would be that just we as human beings are highly visual creatures. 70% of our sensory information just comes through our eyes. And so the things we put out there are also consciously and subconsciously telling us what to value. And so in terms of representation, in terms of whose perspective this is going out into the world, those are considerations to take in mind as far as like what type of impact this work is going to have.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I was following you on your Instagram, which by the way, if you don't follow Jenie, please do. It is Jenie, JenieGao on Instagram. You've got some great work there, and it's a great way to keep up with you and to follow along with your projects. But I know that you're talking a little bit about the impact that it can have on a community on your Instagram today, and how, when a piece of artwork goes up in a community, it's almost like having, another member of the community there, and how it needs to be reflective of the people who live there. And I just think that that's a really interesting perspective to put on the murals and the artwork that we see around the community. And I know that we've talked a little bit about, all the great artwork that we're seeing kind of popping up here, and especially with the Black Lives Matter movement that came up in May of last year. We had so many great artists who got to showcase their artwork, but I know that something that you advocate for is fair pay. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the struggles that artists are kind of coming to terms with as far as doing exposure artwork, and what they should be asking for?
For sure. So one, don't do exposure projects. Just don't do them. Like, one, don't start them, don't organize them, and don't participate in them. There are some people who think that, like, oh, if I do this now, then it's going to pay off later. What you get paid today determines what you're going to get paid later. And an organization that's going to request you to work for free today, they're not planning on paying for that work later. They can get it for free right now. Why would they pay for it, right?
Right.
Another issue that we're running up against, particularly now with how many organizations are trying to get diverse representation, and things like the Black Lives Matter murals that we've seen go up. If we are not reinventing the systems by which the work is happening, then all we're really achieving is symbolic representation and not systemic change.
Absolutely.
And so one thing that I say a lot is representation without compensation is exploitation.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's just full stop.
Right.
And so with these projects, like, there's usually so much excitement to get them started, and not enough attention to what systems that work is going to exist in beyond the initial project.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we need to change those, because the reality is master narratives are hard to change. Systems are hard to change. And if we don't also change the systems, then what's going to happen is the very things that we put out there for a social cause, for some symbolic meeting, will get usurped, will get co-opted by the existing system.
Yep.
And we have to be thinking about the full lifespan of this work once we bring it into the world.
Absolutely. And the people who are commissioning these pieces of artwork and are saying, well, I want to do it to have some cultural diversity, and I want to do it for the exposure. Just saying that and having it there isn't enough. You need to make sure that at the core level, you're actually supporting the people who are putting in the time and the effort to make that happen for you. Just having it out there isn't enough. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, you think, like, our country literally had a war about involuntary unpaid labor, and building this nation on looted wealth and looted labor, and essentially off of the backs of Black people, of Chinese people, of indigenous people, of all these different cultures that got colonized, right? And so it seems like almost too obvious to have to say it,
right?
And yet we do have to say it, because now we're seeing all of these different organizations that are requesting that artists and people of color volunteer their time to make their art for free, to donate their work, to donate just their time in organizing these types of efforts for representation. And it bears repeating: representation without compensation is exploitation.
Yeah.
This has historically always been the problem, and it is still a problem no matter how you frame it today.
Right. So anybody out there who's thinking about, commissioning a piece of artwork to, invest and cultivate the diversity that we have in our community, people who are looking to approach a project like that really shouldn't be looking at it as an opportunity for an artist to put your art on our building. It should be, an opportunity for that company to be able to work with the artist, not the other way around, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're somebody who's looking to get started on a project like this, what would be your advice to people to respectfully approach an artist about a project like this?
Yeah, first, do research on their work. And it's just, most of us have a lot of information out there, either on our websites or on social media. Do research on the person that you're hiring. Make sure that it's a good fit, and that you're not just picking somebody just based on their identity.
Right.
And yeah, make sure it's a good fit for the type of project that you hope to do together. think of ways in which you can have this actually be a partnership. And so not just something that is dictated from the organization, but also something where the artist has decision-making power in the process.
Right.
Think about like, are you hiring diversity across the board? You know, it's not just bringing in an artist of color, it's also hiring graphic designers of color, hiring photographers of color, like just like the team around the work as well. And it's coming back to like what you just said, like in the question as well, not seeing it as an opportunity for the artist, not seeing it as something charitable that the organization is doing.
Right.
If anything, it's really a form of reparations. It's recognizing that we've fallen short of this,
Right.
and that we're now at a place in the United States where by 2032, the majority of the American workforce will be BIPOC. And so the work that we now are inviting into our spaces, the artwork that we use to decorate with, the media that we are consuming needs to be reflective of the workforce that is building this nation.
Absolutely. Yeah. So going along with that kind of line, after an artist is commissioned to make a piece of artwork with an organization, what are some considerations that organization needs to keep in mind in how they interact with the artwork in the future, and how they can continue to respect the artist and the amount of time that went into it?
Yeah, like a lot of these are chances to reflect on what policies we have and what systems, procedures we have for even bringing this work to fruition. And like, we're all really busy. We're all doing a million things, and it's really easy just to replicate what's already been done. An example of this would be contracts, just replicating whatever contracts have been signed in the past. And just because other people signed it in the past doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing. Right. And so it's thinking about like what language might we be using within our organizations that are causing problems, things that are like requiring artists to waive all rights, right? Like that right there. I mean, like, and it's such a common phrase that exists in contracts. And then when you hear it, it's like, it's super aggressive. Like, why would we ever ask anyone to waive their rights, right? Like these, and yet that exists in our contracts. And so like taking a step back and thinking, well, why does this language even exist? And typically an organization will put something like that forward because they want to make it easier just to use the work later on. Right. And well, then just specify what those uses are, right? Mm-hmm. And so like if you want the ability to deaccession a piece of work, so let's say you want to be the ability to take it down and put it into storage, just write that in the contract. Don't say artist waives all rights for whatever the organization does. There's a better way to frame it, to specifically say what it is that you need to be able to do as the client, and that is just far more amenable to everybody, and like, it's not a legal term, but it's far more kind and humane.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Having that transparency in what your intentions are and what your plans are. And I really think that artwork, I mean, you can agree with me or disagree, but should be treated not like a piece of furniture that just lives in a space, but really as an extension of the artist and of the idea that went into the piece of artwork. And I think that, just how you said, treating it humanely, and, with consciousness is really important. And I think that's great. But I know that there are other ways that we can continue to use artwork in the building or wherever it might be to help the artist in continuum. And I think that we mentioned maybe licensing was an opportunity. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about how artists can use licensing to continue to build their brand and continue to bring representation to themselves? Yeah, for sure. So licensing is a great way to continue relationships, to continue a partnership, and for the artist to continue making money. And it's well understood that the artwork, once it's in a business's space, it benefits that space, right? It becomes a part of the environment, the decor. It becomes really a part of the business's brand. And so there are lots of benefits that the business is reaping from that. And so I'm a big proponent of artists never signing away your copyright or intellectual property. Always hold on to your copyright and intellectual property. And if an organization wants to then use that image, use that artwork, they can license it from you. And so I really love approaching
contracts from the perspective of consent culture, where consent once is not consent forever.
Right.
Like, hey, like we signed this contract like the first time, like I'm retaining copyright and intellectual property. That doesn't mean that I don't want you to use the work. Of course I want you to use the work. What I want is for us to have a checkpoint in communication,
Right.
so that we're both in agreement about how this work is going to be used. And what I found is that like when you approach it from this perspective, it's also just way healthier and way more prolific for both parties, right? Where then we have the opportunity to have a long-term relationship as a business vendor and as a client, where just in terms of like you being able to interact with the artist and not make assumptions about what this work was built for, and like they may have thoughts on how this work to be used, and when you license it, say for marketing or say for a product, and it becomes a much more holistic and equitable relationship, and then the artwork has a chance to play a better and more impactful role in the community ecosystem longer term.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm going to go back to when we talked a little bit about how an organization can approach an artist about doing, a commission piece. So as far as somebody looking to approach somebody, and I know that if I were to go to an artist, I would have no idea where to even start being like, can you do this? So as far as like what to keep in mind from like a budgeting perspective, like of course no one wants to insult an artist and or overshoot, undershoot. So what would you say would be kind of a good guideline for an organization looking to budget for something this important?
Yeah, for sure. So as far as budgets, it's going to depend on what you're looking for. And I'll just say here, like it's okay that you're not the expert in it. Right? That's why you're going to go and like hire other people. And so just as far as like kind of like doing your homework, like on your end, as far as what it is that you're looking for, and research on the artist before you approach them to know if this might be a fit, and you might not know, and that's okay, right? And you can ask them then. But as far as just some general parameters for arts budgets, it'll vary from artist to artist. Let's say that you're interested in getting some reproductions, so giclée prints, photographs, like things that can be like easily reproduced. Like budget like at least a few $100s to be getting reproductions of artwork.
Sure.
If you want to get something original that the artist has already made, now you're starting to look at like maybe like $1,000 for a piece as a benchmark. For something that's say like a bit larger, 2 by 3 feet, 3 by 4 feet, we're now looking at say like around 3,000 is a pretty mid-range price for something like that. If you're going to commission something of that same size, so say like a 3 by 4 foot piece, now you're probably looking at like a 5,000 plus budget, and it's because it's not something that they already have, and there's likely going to be some like back and forth in terms of work between service provider and client, to create something custom for you. And then once you get into really large scale work or really complicated work, so let's say you're talking about sculpture or murals, anything that is going to not just have higher labor costs, but also higher material and overhead costs. And just the artist is going to require like a workshop studio space that can house that type of production. Now you're looking at projects that are probably in the 10,000 plus budget range. And so that would be, so that's kind of like a benchmark of like where to start. And then, we'll like, I'll end there. I think we'll be getting into different territory once we get into like the really large scale public art installations.
Oh, absolutely.
And like wall fixtures, right? That like, now we're talking like 6-figure projects. Just as far as like art acquisition within a space, I think those will be some good benchmarks.
That's great. And I love putting that out there because one, any organizations who are thinking about taking on a project now kind of has a guideline for what they can expect, but also any artist listening or, here with us today can also know that this is the price, of your time, and it's okay to ask for that. And I think that from what I've heard from you, some people are, afraid that they're not worthy of asking for what their time and effort and skills are actually worth. And I think that a lot of times people overlook what actually goes into a piece of artwork. And I know that you mentioned there's overhead costs. Can you just go into a little bit more detail about how, how much actually goes into planning a piece of artwork. Let's just say for us, we have a beautiful piece of artwork by you, Trophic Cascade downstairs. So can you just talk a little bit about what all went into that process? Because I think a lot of people think that art just happens and it doesn't. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So, so as far as like an example, like the Trophic Cascade mural that Lodgic has, there was one, just the negotiation process of figuring out like, hey, like here are the parameters of the project, here's the wall space, and here's our timeline. And so that all that like factors into like determining like what the budget for this project is. The second part of that is the design process that we've agreed to like via the negotiation process, where I'm creating preliminary designs for the client to review. Following the preliminary design process, we narrow in on a design that I then finalize. I create a finished to scale design before I even put any paint on the wall. And so I do a smaller version of that work. Then after that, it's setting up the production schedule. It's hiring assistants. So hiring an assistant to help paint. It's hiring a photographer, like hiring a video editor for any of this, like just like the documentation of the process, and really just like anybody who's going to be a part of this creative team. And then there's the actual painting. And so just even like, you know, there's the painting on the wall. And I think the part that people like maybe don't see as often is you need a facility to house all of your materials, right? You need a facility to house your paints, to house your brushes, to house your tools, and to house them in a way that it is easy for you to move in and out. Like I have a commercial studio space, it's 1,700 square feet. It's got high ceilings, like big walls for me to be able to like test things out. Before I ever even like do anything on a client site, I have access to a loading dock. And what that means is like, it's really easy for me just to back my vehicle up into this loading dock and take a dolly between my studio and my car to like get everything I need out for the day. It would be so much harder for me to do that out of say like a home office. Like it would be impossible, frankly, to like do that out of a home office, right? And just to have like actually this like operation where you can do things like at scale. And you know, like I think like other businesses can relate. Like there's a reason why like a brewery has brewery equipment and you're not just doing this out of your garage. Right? There's a point when like there's a difference between it being a profession versus something that like somebody's doing in like their backyard. Right. And so those would be like some of the examples of like overhead costs that go into the production of this project.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Yeah, I mean, I know that a lot of people who are starting out, they don't have the resources to, you know, get a studio going, and they are probably thinking that exposure is the way to go right now. And they're thinking that, you know, once I, you know, break through and once I do this exposure piece, you know, what is your advice to these people who aren't yet at your level?
Sure. My advice is the people who value you will pay you from day one. And, you know, if you go to get a job at any company, it can be the most entry level job. It can require zero experience. Like they might even have to pay to train you, right? And like right there, they have to pay to train you, right? Like from day one, they have to pay you, right? They have to pay you for your first day of work. And like, it's just like, there's no assumption in any other industry that you have to prove yourself first before you get paid. It's only in the arts that we have this expectation. And the thing is, like the artists who are like usually saying that they still have to prove themselves, by that time already have a portfolio. The only thing they might not have is an example of a sale that they've made. And so they think that they have to get work out there before they make the sale, but they probably already have a portfolio of work that they've already done. Right. And someone will hire you for that. Like a portfolio is the most complex resume that anyone could possibly have. Like you've seen most people's resumes. It's like literally just like a piece of paper, right? Like it's just a file and it's like one page, like a couple pages, right? And like artist portfolios are like entire websites, entire books of content, right? Of like, here's little work that I've done. And so the proof is already there, and the people who value you will pay you something.
And I think that I've seen you mention that if somebody is approaching you to do a piece of artwork for them, you've already proven yourself at that point.
Yeah. Like people will come and they'll say like, oh, but like, we'll give you exposure. It's like, but you found me.
Yeah.
I think I have all the exposure I need, and anymore. I mean, like people die from exposure, so like, I don't want any more of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, well, let's see. Anything that we haven't touched on yet that you want to go over? Anything else any questions I haven't maybe asked you that you want to talk about?
I'm sure that there are many. Yeah.
Well, do we have any questions from the audience that we maybe want to talk about? Any questions from you guys? Abe, yes.
I do have, yes. I would love to know how you draw inspiration in maybe your own personal creations, because I'm sure that you have outlets besides commission work. And is that any different or in any way more difficult when you do have to collaborate with someone in a commission piece and kind of work inside the box, so to speak?
Yeah, sure. So, I know that one hesitation people sometimes have with doing commission work is they think they have to make whatever the client makes, right? But it's going to be the same as any other profession, any other industry. We all have like our taste, our aesthetic, like our value structures, and people hire for those, right? Like we're looking for those that fit us. We're not just trying to fit ourselves to whatever it is that other people are looking for. And so for me, like I have a defined style. I have like a defined way that I work, and I have defined ways that I absorb information, research, collect information and inspiration in the world. That's no different than, say, a tech company that has an R&D department, right? Like research and development. I have my own forms of research and development. And that creates the foundation of the type of work that I make. Every once in a while, I'll get an inquiry that's just obviously not a good fit for me. It'll be a good fit for somebody else. And so you don't have to like retrofit what you're doing to what other people are doing. Just like do what you're good at and do what you enjoy doing, and hone that specific skill set. And in terms of like collaborating with the client, like if they've done their due diligence and you've done your due diligence, like it should be pretty easy for you to see eye to eye on what this project needs to be.
And then that actually brought up another question for me. So as far as, considerations for as an artist going into, let's say, a neighborhood or a place where the artwork is going to be publicly displayed, would you as an artist ever, talk with your client about a concern that you have about it? Like, would that be on you to go and say, I have a concern about why or how we're putting this up right now. Would you be willing to consider, pivoting a little bit? Is that something that you would say is maybe something you would talk about up front, or how would you approach that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the answer is yes. I will bring it up. Like I'll bring up the concern, and I'm happy to have that conversation. And people who are good to work with are usually pretty receptive of that. I also think that feedback can come from anywhere, right? Like clients can also raise those types of concerns. Like other people can raise those types of concerns, and not necessarily just the direct decision makers in the world. So I guess to answer your question, yes, I think it's always valid to bring up any concerns about a particular piece. And I think a sign of whether you're in a healthy working relationship is our ability to work through that feedback and receive it, and then improve and address what that concern might have been.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, any sort of concern or feedback or conversation that you're having about a publicly facing piece of art is going to down the line strengthen that piece of artwork, because by addressing concerns up front, you're providing an important and a integral piece of the community.
Yeah.
And if you just buried it and let that concern go by, that could become a problem later down the line.
Yeah.
And of course, you want your artwork to be appreciated and enjoyed. Yeah. And I think that that's a really important thing that all artists should just know, that it's okay to speak up. If you have a concern about something, whether that's in the contract or in the piece of artwork that you're doing, or the fit between yourself and the company that you're representing, speak up. And I think that that's really important. I think it's really cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Yeah.
I guess, Jenny, do you have any stories? I guess, a lot of times public spaces or businesses, they're operating on such tight margins, and a new business is oftentimes not thinking about their environment and how they can improve the environment by putting art on the wall, and what that does for their clients. The story, like, how do we get more businesses to see the value of incorporating public art by paying artists to bring in that community, and instead of just putting mirrors or something very cliche that really kind of dumbs down the environment that their customer is coming to engage. And so how can we make that a more studied or a more engaged practice that local businesses can have more art in their space.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in the early adopters. Like, find the people who are already with you, and eventually the other ones, like via observation or social pressure, are going to join you. You know, I think a lot of times we tend to over-center the naysayers, or the people who just don't care about our movement, right? Whether that's art, whether that's social justice, in politics, in terms of whose priorities matter. And there are people who are already with you, and who, even if they don't have that same expertise, are ready to learn, and lean into that first. And what I found is that just by continuing to hold a certain standard and expectation, I find the people who are already ready to meet me there, and over time, other people who may not have seen it eventually will join. And it's also just on a personal level, it's significantly less stressful, right? It's significantly less stressful than saying just butting heads with a relative, butting heads with someone in the community. And if they're not there, they're not there. And it sucks. It sucks for those of us who love the arts and who see the value of it. But one thing that I've been emphasizing with a lot of folks lately is, even in an unfair system, you have the choice to set your own standards, your own boundaries, your own expectations. And you will find people, even in an unfair system, who will meet you there. And that's the beginning of your movement. And that is what will sustain the movement in the long term.
I love that. So for any businesses that maybe aren't prioritizing artwork in their space right now, can you talk a little bit about the power that a piece of artwork can bring to a space, to an organization, to an area, just what a difference it makes?
Yeah, for sure. So, there's an estimated 8.7 million animal species on the planet. And out of all of those, we are the only ones that actively record our image and the images of others, right? And we're not just doing it ourselves. We literally can't help ourselves, right? We're just compelled to record images and information of ourselves and others, for better or for worse, right? And so in terms of what it is that that gives us, it gives us the foundation of our culture. It starts in the arts. You think about the issues that we have with representation and who we see as valuable in society. We're living on stolen land, and in a nation that built its wealth looting the artworks and cultural artifacts of BIPOC nations. And now we're caught up in debates about things like cultural appropriation, how these things, how these images, how these artworks from other societies get used, and essentially how we've divorced people from their cultural heritage, right? And that right there is at the crux of the problem.
Yes.
And so in terms of the power of art, it's not just about hanging a picture up on the wall. It's literally the design of our environment that tells us each and every day who is valuable and who we validate as far as yes, you exist.
Right.
And yeah, and that's there's extraordinary power in that has been used for evil and can also be used for good.
I've got a question that came in from Facebook. This one's from Benji. It says, seeing as how you will be studying anti-gentrification art in Montreal soon, can you speak to the role of art in the gentrification / anti-gentrification?
That's a meaty question. Can you ask that one more time?
No, absolutely. Seeing as how you will be studying anti-gentrification art in Montreal soon, can you speak to the role of art in the gentification / anti-gentrification?
Yeah, for sure. So, so I'm going to be going to Vancouver soon, and specifically to work on a body of research that I've been developing in my business for a long time, and I want a couple years to just like hone in on that specifically. And one of the things that alarms me as an artist and practitioner in this space is how the arts get weaponized currently for gentrification. And so we see it with like the whole like placemaking movement and placemaking, like terms like urban revitalization, and how we bring in artists to do murals, typically for free or for cheap, to revitalize an area. We bring in artists to do pop-up markets, pop-up art fairs, like pop-up art parties in our downtown business districts, typically not paying the artist, or maybe we give them an opportunity to sell some stuff, maybe make like a few $100. And like we see arts nonprofits and galleries move into neighborhoods with cheaper rents, and all of this sows the seeds for gentrification. And the thing is, a lot of developers know this and purposely put artists into these spaces, and may even go so far as to frame it as, oh, well, like let's bring in the artists, let's bring in this art event, and it will help struggling businesses, right? And so again, we're centering somebody else. The goal here isn't actually to help the artist, it's to help something else. It's help to revitalize a business district, it's to help like renew a particular area that we see as depressed. And so there's so much art labor. We don't have any data on how many hours of unpaid and underpaid art labor literally go into building these spaces that totally change our neighborhoods and communities within a few years, and displace the BIPOC that live there, displace the senior citizens, the working class, and displace the artists themselves, right? Like I don't know any artist who's ever put up work in a pop-up art market, who's ever via that method made enough money to rent the spaces on the street where they're popping up with their booth.
Yeah, when you say it, it's like, why do we, it's so obvious, you know, when you say it like that. It's incredible. And I saw a quote from you where it was like, I dream about the day where I get to walk into a room full of my artist friends and know that all of them are being properly compensated for their artwork. And I love that, I thought that was amazing. And it's just through these conversations that I've had with you, it really has opened my eyes to how people really look at artists as, doing them a favor, doing the artist a favor by giving them the platform to do something and saying, oh, well, you're passionate about art, so you're going to love to do this. It's not true. It's, of course it is your passion, but like anything, you can't be, asked to just do things pro bono or for exposure and just claim that it's because you love it,
Well, that passion piece too, right? Like that's also indicative of where we are society, like as a society, and what our values are. That we, like, when we say that we expect someone to work for free or cheap because they're passionate about it, underneath that, we are admitting that we don't expect people to like the work they do, right? Like we don't expect people to actually enjoy their jobs. And how sad is that, right? And is that actually the type of society that we want to live in?
Right.
And if not, then how do we need to start changing our language and start changing our systems and really like start changing like the core of like how we're thinking about these things, right? That like yeah, actually everyone should love what they're doing.
Everyone should be passionate about their job. And everyone should be paid to be passionate about it.
Like, everyone should be paid like well enough to retire off of what they're doing, right? Like, and it's just that like, like isn't that actually something worth aspiring towards?
Absolutely, yeah. And I know that, being an artist, children at a very young age, they learn to be creative. And a lot of their first outlets is being creative. And I think that it's important to show that, being an artist is a career, it is a path to go down. And I think a lot of times that gets kind of weaned out early on. And I think that, by your movement of telling artists to stand up for yourself and to ask for proper compensation, it's doing something powerful for the current artists, but also the future artists. And I think that that's amazing, just being able to show that, you've talked about how you've supported 24 interns, I believe. Yeah, and I think that just showing that an organization who can properly compensate an artist, you're helping the artist, yes, but you're helping the future of artwork and the future artists that are coming along. And you are able to support these interns who will hopefully then go on and do more. And I think that it's this beautiful, network and butterfly effect that, asking for that proper compensation will have. And I hope in the future, there's more local artwork around, and there's more thoughtful murals put up, and more people have a say in what it's going to look like and where it's going to go. And I think that it's a really important conversation that you're starting. And I really want to thank you for starting that and for coming here and talking about it, because I really think it's so beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And yeah, I'm glad to be here and to continue the conversation.
Yeah, and I know that you're planning on having some open studio sessions coming up here. I'm sure you'll announce it again. Like I said, go follow her on Instagram at Jenie Gao, JenieGao, or visit your website, which I did recently, and I saw that you're doing some really great APA Zodiac pieces of artwork. I really am a huge fan of Earth Dragon, like I told you before. So if you guys haven't checked out Jenny's artwork, please do. Please go to her website, check out her studio, or stop by Lodgic Everyday Community. We have Tropic Cascade downstairs, which is actually, do you want to talk a little bit about Tropic Cascade, just what it is, if people haven't seen it, and kind of the idea that went behind it? I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, sure. So Tropic Cascade is a mural, and it's I actually I love that it's kind of at the confluence of where people are entering the building and going to the co-working space, the restaurant, and also like where the restaurant workers pass by every day.
Right.
That it's in that confluence. And so the mural itself features a mother wolf and a wolf cub, and some monarch butterflies and a chrysalis. And the idea of the piece is connecting local impact with global effects, right? So thinking about how, like, when we plant milkweed locally, when we restore prairies locally, that literally changes the patterns, the migration patterns of the monarch butterflies, and therefore the weather patterns around the world. When we reintroduce animals like the timber wolves to our forests, to our wild environments, like that puts the ecosystems back into balance, and it literally changes the flow of the rivers, and all the other animals that are able to live in that same ecosystem. And so it's looking like at what we're doing on a local level and seeing how those individual local actions result in a larger global impact.
I really love the parallel of what you just described and the parallel between artists being properly compensated. The difference of introducing wolves can change, the entire landscape of geography, and the difference of properly compensating artists can change, the future of cultural identity and cultivating diverse communities. And I really I'm sure it was unintentional, but there is like a big parallel to be drawn there, and I love that. So again, please go check out Jenny's artwork. It's absolutely beautiful. And if you're thinking about installing a piece of artwork in your space, or looking into that, please, sounds like, do your research, make sure that whoever you're approaching, it's a good fit for, come up with a realistic budget and approach them with that. And be on the lookout and ask for feedback about the piece of artwork. Talk to the artist about what they're comfortable with and if they have any concerns about it. And as far as working up a contract, make sure that you're transparent about it. And if you're an artist listening to this, read the contract. Read the contract.
And the person on the other side has a word processor and a backspace button.
Yeah.
Like, it's very easy for them to make changes.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
And they usually will. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask for what you deserve.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's it. Any other questions?
We do have a couple more.
Oh,
we got a
great.
few more minutes here. A couple more came in via Facebook. One from Matthew. What are some of the bigger creative challenges that an artist of your caliber faces in their creative life? Painter's block, so to speak.
Oh, so all right. So ask one more time. And
what are some of the bigger creative challenges that an artist of your caliber faces in their creative life?
Yeah. The bigger challenges that I face, protecting time and space. Protecting time and space just for me to create without expectation. And I don't think I'm unusual in like having high expectations of myself. And I mean, I have a business that supports not only my livelihood and my family and our ability to take care of aging family members and my retirement someday, but like also like all the people that I hire, right? And so I'm constantly thinking about how to keep things stable so that I can keep paying the people that I hire and keep on track with the goals that I have for my family. And so the hard thing, like being the sole owner of this business, is protecting time and space to create without expectation. Yeah.
I've got one more. This one comes in from Marlisha, I believe. Question is there any region of the United States where you and your work have been received more amicably than in another location? And if there was an area that has not received your anti-gentrification practice well, can you describe the resilience that was necessary to move onward without compromise of person and practice?
Wow. You know, I don't know that I've seen a difference regionally. It's more, I'd say, like on institutional levels. It's like every region has this problem, and really, like what we're dealing with is it's a question of how we're going to develop our cities in the future. Every metropolitan area is dealing with this, and smaller towns that are now copying what bigger cities are doing in terms of like trying to build tourist economies, in terms of like trying to build like downtowns and like placemaking initiatives. Like this is a challenge everywhere in terms of like how we actually combat gentrification and decouple the arts, de-weaponize the arts for gentrification. And it's a bigger question of how we see ourselves developing our cities and communities in the future. As far as dealing with institutions with resilience, you know, like a lot of times it's knowing when to say no. And I'd say that like there are the clients who are with you 100%. They're amazing. They're the best. There are those who maybe don't know initially, but they're ready to learn. And they're also amazing. I'm always happy working with people who are ready to learn and can accept feedback. And then there are those who aren't with you and who may never be with you. And it takes pretty strong boundaries to work with those types of organizations. And sometimes you're going to have an impasse that is not crossable. And in that case, you need to know when it might be time to drop a relationship and that it's okay. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think we have time for one more question, one that came in. Jenie, will you be coming back to Madison after your work in Canada?
Yeah, so my partner is still going to be living here for the time being. He's finishing up a degree at the UW-Madison. So he has 1 year left on his program. So right now we're saying we'll see. I'll still be visiting him. He'll be visiting me. And we'll assess in 1 year once he finishes his program where we are. And at that point, I'll have 1 year left on my program as well. So we'll see. Yeah.
Well, we hope we see you again. Yeah, and we hope to see you back in Madison. I think that pretty much wraps it up. Jenie, thank you again so much. I've loved this conversation, and I hope that everybody listening in also enjoyed it. I've learned so much from talking to you, and I really hope everyone else did too. Thank you so much for coming. Again, please go check out her artwork. She's doing amazing things. You know, go and follow some local Madison artists. All right. All right. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. That was great. That was awesome. Yeah, I love that.